Hello and welcome to this special My Hero Academia Vigilantes themed video where we're talking about a few things that fans of My Hero Academia should be aware of before watching the upcoming series. Now this video is going to be spoiler free, so don't worry about it from that side of things. I'm not going to be giving away major plot points or character beats or anything along those lines, and this video is not a My Hero Academia Vigilantes is secretly terrible and you should feel bad for liking it or anything along those lines, or a video that's going to say the new series is going to suck. No, this is a video that seeks to dispel a few misunderstandings and a little bit of misinformation that is floating about as regards to this series, as well as give a little bit of a forewarning for some of the things that may come next. Again, nothing specific, but it's just so that when people are watching this, they're not expected to get one thing and then get something else that they probably weren't prepared for or really willing to accept. Though, hey, we don't know how much is going to get adapted here. Judging by the most recent trailer, a lot of stuff is going to get adapted in that first season, or maybe not. We'll soon see where all that goes, but hey, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it together. In any case, let's kick this off and say that, look, I know that this should go without saying, but My Hero Academia Vigilantes is not My Hero Academia 2. Yeah, I know that this is probably the most obvious thing that I could say here, and this will be greeted with a big chorus of, well, duh, for most of the people listening to this, but I have to say that I'm stating this because there does feel as though there is a certain amount of misinformation floating about around this series due to something of a mistranslation from the initial press releases, and of course I'll also elaborate on the whole this isn't My Hero Academia 2, because I feel that isn't just literally, there are other elements here which do put some daylight between it and the main series, but I'll discuss those as best as I can do shortly. So, first off, the misinformation is that when the first trailer for this series was released, there was a promotional website released, and on that it had this kind of information that you'd expect on it, mostly press release and press kit information for those of us that work in the media when we're writing up our news stories about it. And on that website, it was all in Japanese, so through the power of Google Translate, we were able to read that in English, or whatever language it is that you happen to speak, and, well, would you know it, Google Translate mistranslated something, and on that website, and I haven't had time to re-find the website or find the thing itself, because by this point it probably has been corrected. On that website, it stated that My Hero Academia Vigilantes takes place after My Hero Academia, which, frankly, it doesn't. Vigilantes takes place before My Hero Academia, about 5 years or so. I don't know the exact figure, it might be more than that, it might be less than that. I'm just saying 5 years because it feels like a more of a round ballpark kind of figure. This is around the time that All Might was still an active hero, when some of our pro heroes from the main series were just starting to get started and make a name for ourselves, and with most of our main cast members, Midori and Bakugo and co, were still in like primary school or an equivalent thereof in Japan. And when exactly this series takes place relative to other major plot points, like, say, the big battle between All Might and All For One, which resulted in All Might's injury, I don't know exactly. I know that it's set after that. How close or not, I don't know, but hey ho, this is a prequel series. But I should point out that when I say that this is a prequel series, I don't mean this in maybe the way that a lot of people are expecting it to. This isn't your typical prequel series in maybe the way that a lot of us have been brought up to expect. This is a story that is set in an earlier point in this timeline. Another story in the same world. Whilst there are some events in this series that do echo on into My Hero Academia, and while some that do change and recontextualize or just give new insight on things that happened there, this is not a series that just exists to be a setup for that series. This is not the prequel series for Star Wars. This is not a series that is aiming to neatly tie all of this up for the sake of, oh, now we know how Darth Vader existed. And whilst I am sure that in the end this all ties up rather neatly, this is not setting up so that we have something very specific happening in the main series, if you understand what I'm saying. There is some setup for things that are coming on later on. There are a few familiar faces here and there, as you've seen within the trailers, but this isn't their story. This isn't a story that really exists for the sake of them. This is not a story that exists to explain why certain characters ended up the way that they are in the main series. does get into that, but ultimately this is a story about Koichi and his friends and their trials and tribulations to be a vigilante, more so than it is trying to be My Hero Academia Part 0, if you understand my meaning. Also, I feel that with regards to this not being My Hero Academia 2, I should also point out that I feel that Vigilantes is a darker story than My Hero Academia. Though I will admit that when I say darker, that is a very relative term, because for some people this series is going to be a walk in the park, light, bright and fun as always. For other people, it might be a little bit more troubling for them. I've always said that My Hero Academia as a series is a lot darker than I think a lot of people give it credit for. Oh sure, it isn't grimdark and it isn't the darkest story I've ever seen, but it isn't quite as light and bright as maybe the art style and animation gives it credit for, as a lot of the darkness isn't quite as visceral. It isn't in the art, it isn't in blood or gore, it's within the actions that certain characters do, as well as given just how unpleasant this world can really be for a lot of people that, let's be honest, really don't deserve that. And I have to say that I feel that pound for pound, Vigilantes is a darker story, but that's mostly due to the fact that it feels a lot shorter, and as such there is less episodes to just hang about and just have some fun with these characters. This might well change in adaptation, because A, this is a TV series, and as such there's certain things you can't do in television that you can do in a manga or a comic book, and as such some of those things might not get translated over, and there's also the possibility that certain events might get elaborated upon. There may be a few moments of filler, a couple fun little episodes thrown in here and there, just pad things out, which might make it feel a little more blighter and brighter than it certainly is versus the source material. And I can't say for certain as to whether or not it is a darker series overall, but at least what I've read thus far, it does feel as though it is doing things it wouldn't necessarily do within the main series. Now, part of this due to the fact our cast in this is older, and as such you can get away with doing things with these characters and imply levels of sinister peril and darkness that you really can't do with the characters within the main series. This is a spoiler-free video, so I won't go into specifics, and again, this is stuff that might well change in the adaptation. This isn't, I should say, a series which is constantly dark. This isn't 2000 AD, this isn't The Watchmen, or just about any other modern mainstream superhero series which seeks to show heroes as being bad guys, or truly the bad guys are all along, or anything like that. There are moments of levity in this series. There are moments that are lighter, brighter, sillier, wackier, goofier, dumb and silly, and that's fine. This series is not the long Midnight of the Soul for the My Hero Academia series. It's just that I feel that it's worth pointing out that for certain viewers there may be some scenes here and there and some sequences that might trouble them, though I will say is that I feel that this series is still very much within the same neighbourhood in terms of some of the darkness that we see in the main series. In certain areas it does go a little bit further into that, but I think that again this is due to the age of the characters themselves, and as well as just given the subject matter. This is a series about a bunch of vigilantes, as such they're going to be dealing with things that are less glamorous than what you would get with All Might and Midori and all their friends. Again, this is adapted for television. Some of these things may change, the order of some events may be altered, and some things might be dropped entirely. I'm not the kind of person that sees source text as being sacred, so you're not likely to get reviews where I rant and rave about the changes, because to be honest with you, I feel that totally misses the point, and as someone who knows all too well how difficult it is to adapt from one medium to another, I'm sure as hell I'm not going to lecture the people making this series if certain events are absent, though I will do that if I feel that it's changed in ways I don't think ultimately are for the better, or in ways I don't understand why they changed. Like, if it's a case of, okay, I understand why they changed this, because it might be a little bit too dark for television, but if it isn't something along those lines, it's just going to feel odd to me, but we'll soon see where all that ends up going. And even beyond this, structurally, tonally, and in terms of the broader presentation, My Hero Academia Vigilantes just feels different to My Hero Academia. It's a feeling that I think will ultimately be enhanced with this series due to the animation and art style they seem to be going with all of this. And that makes sense because we are looking at a very different world. We're looking at this world from a different perspective, and again we're aiming at a more mature storyline with more mature characters, so it makes sense we've got an art style that is a little bit more gritty and a little bit less fantastical. we'll see exactly how well or not it ends up able to hold that together, and where it's able to still have the more silly and goofier moments we do see within the source material, and have them feel like they do, work given the new art style, but we'll soon see about that. Vigilantes, for me, feels in some ways like a Japanese take on a typical American superhero series. I will admit it doesn't always stick at the landing if that's the idea, but it does do a lot of good work nonetheless. Now, the last substantive point I will make, or at least the one I still know is true, is that our lead character in this isn't just Midoriya, but older. I know that a lot of people will see this series and declare, oh, he's just like Izuku, he's just like young Midoriya, and whilst there are certainly similarities in terms of their personality, Koichi is his own character. Yes, they both have this rather wistful, dreamer, optimist angle to them. They're both big fans of All Might to varying different extents. Though, of course, I think that with Koichi, his fanboyness for All Might borders on millennial fanboy, fangirl directions that makes that kind of stuff look rather austere in comparison. Koichi has his own life, his own responsibilities, his own life experiences, his own flaws and weaknesses. And whilst you could argue that this series does give us almost like a what-if insight as to what Midoriya's life would have been like had he not got into UA, with Koichi, again, I feel that he's enough of his own character that should avoid that. There are certainly things, again, that are very similar between the two of them, but they are very different characters. They both have their own personality quirks and aspects to them. I do feel that Koichi in some areas is a stronger personality, in other areas he's a weaker personality, but again, I think that it's wise for people going into this to treat him as his own man, and not just treat him as though he is Midoriya to the Squeakquel. It will be interesting to see if, with this series, they do elaborate on his work-life balance. He is a university student, also works part-time in like a supermarket, and is also a vigilante. It will be interesting to see if they elaborate on that, have an episode or two of just filler stuff that isn't from the original source material, where it just shows him trying to balance that, or just a cute scene here or there. I'd like to see that, but we'll soon see about how that ends up going. And of course, being a vigilante, he does not have access to the same kind of resources that Midoriya has, so it's interesting to see. It will be interesting to see how much they play into that. Again, this is an adaptation. Whilst I do hope they will elaborate on a few things and do things, maybe not differently, but do things in a different way, we'll see. This is an anime adaptation, and those tend to be fairly faithful to the source material for the most part. Now, my last point I will raise, and I'm not 100% sure how much will be adapted in this season, but I do think that it is going to be the first 4 volumes. At the end, or possibly the start of Volume 4, it mentions about, or it might be start of Volume 5, I don't remember exactly. They mention how the first 4 volumes were their Season 1. And at the time I thought that was an odd comment to make, because I feel that those 4 volumes have way too much material happening within them to really do in one singular 15 to 25 episode series, in my opinion. This series is going to be 13 episodes long, and if it's really going to try and fit 4 volumes worth of material into 13 episodes, good luck, everybody. I am interested to see if that will end up going. And this is mostly due to the fact the most recent trailer makes it feel as though they are going to adapt the first 4 volumes. Maybe they're going to be doing that. Alternatively, it may be they're just introducing characters from the third and fourth volume earlier on to foreshadow them later, which I think would be a great idea. As I say, I think it's odd to try and fit 4 volumes worth of material into one season, but we'll see where they go with it. I will admit I'm not terribly thrilled about all of that. I think that at the end of the day, it would be better to just do the first 2 volumes and just elaborate on certain things, build out certain aspects of it, put a few moments of filler here and there to help sell the vibe and tone of this series, more so than trying to fit that much into a 13-episode run, but we'll soon see. The truth of the matter is that an episode in the manga form is going to be far shorter than an episode within the show, so it makes sense you'd be able to compact a few of these manga episodes together into one episode, but we'll see how it ends up going. I do hope that it's going to be a lot more, the pacing's going to be a lot better than I fear it's going to end up being. Again, this is not going to be going down that I think this is going to be a crap point of view, because I don't think that's going to be the case, but we'll see. We'll soon see where all this goes. Anyway, that is what I have to say about all of this. This is not My Hero Academia Part 2. This is not a direct prequel. This is a series that may be difficult for some people to watch, but I feel that it is still keeping, for the most part, within the tone of the main series. And I hope that people do enjoy it, because I really do like Vigilantes, and it does tick a lot of boxes, and just it satisfies things for me that I found were lacking with the main series itself, and I am thrilled to see that it's being adapted. There will ultimately end up being a few things here and there that I think could have been done better, things that I would have done differently if I was personally adapting it, but my attitude to adaptation, I think, is very different to your average anime manga fan, so that's fair enough. But anyway, let me know what you think about this upcoming series, or anything that you would like to know about in a non-spoiler way. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you're excited for this upcoming series, let me know. We're about a week or so away from all of this kicking off, so let me know what you're thinking, let me know what you're feeling, and between then and now, I'll see you next time. Goodbye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!